Welcome back, everyone. Before we start our business this morning, I want to acknowledge the Victoria Regional Transit Commission conducts its business on the Lekwungen traditional territory, homelands of the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations. The agenda before us, I am going to suggest that item number 7 be moved down to just prior to number 12, because Robin has to leave the meeting and she will hopefully be back in time for that. So with that change, a motion to approve the agenda, please. Moved by Fred, seconded by Charlene. Those in favor, opposed, motion carries. The approval of the minutes from our June 9th meeting are in front of you. Had a chance to take a look at them. Moved by Fred Haynes, second. I'm sorry, let's catch that.
Second, Tate.
Oh, thanks, Maya. Seconded. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, those in favor, opposed, motion carries. Great. I just had put down a few thoughts here and wanted to just sort of put us back in the context of where we were when we last met. And it's been good to see more people out and about as we move towards getting safely back to normal. I look forward to our next meeting in November, which I really hope will be in-person meeting. I think it's been amazing what the technology has allowed us to do, but it is much more conducive to good, fulsome discussions, I believe, if we can be meeting in person. Want to just point out that on June the 30th, we had a very exciting announcement. We went out to Colwood and we were joined by the mayor and also the minister, and we had as well in attendance, we had the CRD chair Plant, which is so appropriate in that we've now identified transit as a high priority at the CRD. We had Mayor Screech with us, and also appropriate as he chairs the Transportation Committee, and also Mayor Haynes, who chairs the Traffic and Safety Commission. So we had all the big players there, and that was to announce the first phase of the rapid bus implementation. The West Shore to downtown Victoria line of rapid bus will be the first of 3 bus corridors that aim to connect areas with the highest travel demand in a way that outperforms single vehicle traffic in speed, comfort, and reliability. We all know that. That's our mantra, and we launched phase 1 on June the 30th. Staff are working with municipalities on planning the implementation that will take place within the next few years. Meanwhile, work continues to replace the fleet with new, cleaner, more efficient compressed natural gas buses, and we're set to see our first 10 battery electric bus enter our fleet within the year. Staff will bring an update on this project to an upcoming meeting and an exciting transition that will work towards our plan to reduce GHG emissions and create action around climate. I think all of us this week have even had our awareness heightened even more about the impacts of climate change. So with that, and going down the agenda, we had no correspondence and there were no notices of motion. So we're going to move right into reports. And the first one, Megan, is going to take us through the financial and performance summary for Q1.
Great, thank you very much. I will leave it to someone else to manage the slides for me. Is that correct? And if you could just
Christine. Christine is doing the slides for Megan. If you can just tell her next slide, that would be great.
Yeah, yeah. Just the next slide is that's the overview. But what I prefer to do is just to carry on and go through sort of the highlights included in this slide. So thank you. So on revenue and passenger trips, Sort of a good news story from my perspective. Passenger revenue it's slightly below budget, but for all intents and purposes, it's on budget, and ridership is slightly above budget. And I thought I'd just talk about that for a moment. What we're seeing is that at the end of last year, we hit around 43% of our pre-COVID targets, but starting this April through June, what we've seen is ridership has gone up now from 49% all the way up to 56%. And that's where we are as of July. And our target was 55%. So each month is getting better and better in terms of our target. And so that's a good news story. The outcome is that we're getting a little less cash now and a bit more passes, so our average fare is dropping slightly. So, but for all intents and purposes, I'm happy to see that we're on budget year to date. And the forecast for revenue is projected to be 1.2 million above budget, and that mostly comes from the announcement from the post-secondary institutions back in class, and as well, UVic for sure is moving back to their opt-out program for UPass. Last year it was an opt-in, and we saw a big decrease in UPass revenues last year. So we're expecting to see much better results from the UPass revenues for this fiscal year. And as well, passenger trips, we are forecasting to be about 3% above the target by year end. Again, at any point, if there's a question, feel free to raise your hand or wait to the end. And go to the next slide. On our different funding sources, again, we budgeted to use our Safe Restart funding, the $21.3 million for this fiscal year. Just so you're aware, we'll still have about $6.9 million left to use next year. And that came from the contingency and the additional fuel tax revenues we received at year end last year. Provincial operating contribution is slightly over budget to date and forecast to be below budget at year end because we're projecting to be below budget at year end on our operating costs. Fuel tax revenues are forecasted to be on budget, even though you see that we're below budget year to date. It's a timing issue of when we actually receive the fuel tax revenues. So far, we're not concerned about that. And the local contribution is 1.1 million over budget year to date because we are over budget on total operating costs at this point. And we have slightly lower passenger and fuel tax revenues. But by year end, we expect to be under budget by 1.7 as we forecast lower total operating costs and higher passenger revenues. Next slide. On the operations side, the two big stories here. One on operations, not including fuel. We're on budget year to date, but hoping and forecasting that we will be under budget by $3 million at year end, due primarily to our ability to capitalize the Island Highway project. We have approval from our auditors at this point. We still need to jump through a couple hoops to finalize that, but we're very hopeful that that will happen. And as well, as you're probably aware, the ICBC rates were dropped and we're experiencing being under budget on ICBC expenses. On the flip side is fuel. We have a budget of $1.03 for fuel. We are currently running over budget as our average price to date is at around $1.27. And we have forecasted for that to stay at that level towards 2 year end. And we project to be basically $2 million over budget on fuel at year end. So that fuel price is not in our control. I'm hoping it doesn't go much higher than that. But that one's always volatile, so we're watching that closely. Any questions on that side?
As we go through, commission members, yes, by all means, just put up hands if you wish further explanation, anyone. Yeah, thanks, Megan. Looks like we're all on the page. Yeah.
Great. Next slide, please. On maintenance, nothing too exciting happening here. We're slightly over budget year to date. We had some unexpected part failures on our fleet, and some of our labor costs were higher than budget. But we're hoping the parts failures are a spike, and by year end we'll be close to budget. And on the fleet maintenance side, we're almost on budget, but we do expect to be slightly over budget with increased facility cleaning costs, primarily related to what's required under due to COVID, keeping the facilities clean, etc. And the higher costs on the Victoria Facilities Master Plan. And the next slide is, thank you, administration. Slightly over budget year to date, basically just due to timing on when expenses for marketing, some training and legal expenses came in, and we expect to be on budget by year end. Next slide. Quickly, again, lease fees, nothing exciting on this slide, that's for sure. Basically on budget year to date and expect to be on budget at year end. And the next slide. And the transit fund. Just a couple interesting things here is that we anticipate that we will actually generate more from our transit levies than originally budgeted, mostly from our grants in lieu. Once the final assessments were in, we feel our budget in that area was too low, so we'll be gaining almost $1 million in that category. And overall, since we anticipate lower operating costs, higher passenger revenues, and higher property taxes, will be higher than our budget by not quite $3 million in our transit fund at year end. And that's the end of my presentation. If anyone has any questions, happy to take those.
Members of the commission, anyone want to make a comment or to ask a question? If not, the motion, somebody there? As we look at Mayor Martin. Oh, sorry, Mayor Martin. Which one? Yeah.
Thank you. Just a very quick question, just around the provincial announcement around 12 and under, no longer paying, and how does that fit within the budget? Did the province is this like a cash neutral for us? And perhaps you could just
sure,
comment on that, please.
For sure. Yeah, with the free fare under 13, the province is paying 100% of any associated operating costs related to that program. And as well, we put forward what we anticipate the impact will be to revenue, and they are also covering that portion. So they'll give us the money and we will apply the revenue to the commission, and they'll also cover the costs of that 100%.
Thank you.
Completely neutral.
Great. So through the chair, if I may, just as a quick follow-up, how will that get reflected in the budget moving forward? Will that just show up as, will that be a different line item, or will that just be general revenue that it just shows up as that?
We'll show it as a separate line item on the revenue side.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Good question. Any further questions? Mayor Helps.
Thanks. My question is with respect to the transit fund. Is the safe restart funding for next year in there, or what? That seems like an extraordinary amount of money to have at the end of the year. But is that the safe restart funding, or how come there's 28 million, or will be 28 million in the transit fund?
Megan?
Well, we started with the 50 million from the entire Safe Restart amount, and we're using not quite half of that for this year. And we'll use another, probably the remaining amount in the following year. So,
Okay, so it is, that's why it's bulked up, because the Safe Restart funding is in that part of that
Correct.
balance. Okay, perfect, thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
okay.
Director Orr?
Yeah, just a comment, and this the fuel amount is more of an internal one for us, and probably won't get the review externally. But I think when we think about a 15 or 16% increase in fuel, it's important to reflect on the fact that overall in the operation side, it's a 1% increase, so it's a big increase in fuel, and we budget conservatively. So the impact to our overall budget is not nearly that number. And would that be a fair assessment through you, Chair, to Megan?
Megan?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure. I couldn't quite hear the question.
Wanting just to sort of keep in perspective, even though the amount, percentage increase in gas fuel is higher when you lay it across the whole budget, I think Director Orr said it's like a 1%.
Correct. I mean, it can be anywhere from 200 to $2 million impact. So it, in the scheme of things, it depends if that's bringing you under or over budget. So
okay.
I think that answers your question.
Further questions? Motion to approve the report? Lisa, seconded by Rob. Any discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Megan.
You're welcome.
And then the 3-year service expansion. And that's going to be Lisa.
Just wait for her to bring that up. Do you have the 3-year expansion? Oh, there we are. Perfect. So this is the time of year where we always seek for the commission to approve any service expansions. We seek to do that to put it into the provincial plan for September so that we can seek funding for the provincial portion on your behalf. The first year of the funding, we do kind of lock that in, and that becomes, once you approve it, becomes what your investment is for next year. And year 2 and 3, for budgeting purposes, we like to see approval from the commission, but we do have the ability to revisit it again next year, year 2 and 3, should things change. And staff has recognized that we have those first battery electric buses coming into service in 2022, but we're not recommending any buses for the first couple years. And part of the reason is that we are looking to see what the ridership is going to do in post-COVID, and that the staff felt that with ridership only being at 56%, that the focus should really be on recovering current ridership before a significant investment in expansion resources. I know we've talked about in the 10-year vision being transformational in terms of mode share shift and hours and expansion down the road. And certainly within the 10-year plan, that has still been the plan that the commission has put forward to us. But staff is proposing that due to the electrification of the fleet and bringing down GHG emissions in that manner, instead of shifting on mode share and looking at honoring the commitment to not buy heavy duty diesel buses, that in the first couple years, we don't suggest any vehicle replacements, and we focus on 20,000 hours to really invest in the service where it's needed as it comes back in COVID, which will certainly be more apparent as we move into the fall time period. So if you could just move down to the table there, Christine, in the report. There we are. We've outlined that we're looking, staff is looking for the commission to approve a 20,000 hour and 0 buses for the first year. And like I said, that year would be what would be put into the budget and sent in with the service plan to the province for us for their portion of the funding. And for budgeting purposes, year 2 and 3, that's what we would put into the service plan for the province. But certainly, should we find that we come out of COVID in a better position and gain a lot of traction and ridership over the next year, we could look at those numbers again down the road. I know the commission has also heard about facility constraints. We've just completed the facility master plan is just coming to an end. And we know from that plan, we have limited resources at the facilities till our new facility is opened. And certainly bringing on electric bus takes up more space at those facilities too. So I think this plan is a plan that will work to bring down GHG emissions and focus on the electrification on the fleet while giving enough hours to prop up the system where it's needed as we come out of COVID. And with that, I would turn back to you, Chair Bryce.
Thanks very much, Lisa. Questions on this? Yes, Lisa Helps.
Sorry, my hand is still up from before. I don't have a question.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? We got Kevin Murdoch, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just a quick question. The annual hours, 20,000. This is inclusive of the rapid bus investments, et cetera. Is that correct, or is that I know it's the primary directive of us as an organization. Is that separated from this in terms of our overall piece, or is that inclusive?
That would be inclusive at this point. We still have some hours we're working with it within this year as well, and then next year, and primarily a lot of these hours might go towards that investment in that rapid bus.
Great, thank you very much.
Any further questions? If not, we're looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Director Murdoch, seconded by Director Orr. Discussion. Those in favor? Opposed? Anyone opposed indicate? Motion carries. Terrific, thank you. Number 6, the 2022 Commission meeting schedule. And Lisa, is there anything further you want to add? Is this pretty well rolling out in the usual?
It's certainly rolling out in the usual way. So this time every year, we kind of look at what key milestones we need decisions made and into the BC Transit schedule and the provincial timelines. So this is set up much the same as it has been in previous years with a workshop and our normal Tuesday meetings. The only thing that we did kind of change is we took out the August timeline. We found that August was challenging to get together reports in the summer with people on vacation. So we have a June and September in there, but it's pretty much status quo for the next year, just trying to set the meeting plans for our calendars.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes. Director Murdoch? Murdoch?
I'll jump in here. It's Director Murdoch. Just for my clarification, not looking at the schedule, UBCM is not the September 13th week then? It's a different week?
I think I did check that actually, and I would say off the top of my head, if I recall, that it is a different week. But if there's to be a change or amendment, we'll look to do that. But I think that unless Kara can quickly look for me, I think it is on a different week.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Director Tate?
It's the same week. I think it's the same weekend. I just Googled it.
Oh, did you?
Do you have info on that, Lisa?
That's this year. It's early this year. It's that week in 2021, but not in 2022.
Perfect. Good. Thank you. Director Tate.
Thank you. I was going to add that, yes, UBCM's early this week because usually there would have been a provincial election, so it shifted, but then it was last year, but the meeting dates were already booked. So that's why it's early. Next year it'll go back to the regular week. The only question I have is in regards to the November 8th, 2022 date. With municipal elections, is that going to work for inaugural meetings to form and folks should be sworn in, or is that tight? That's the only, because the municipal election will be is it 3rd Saturday of October next year?
It's a very point through the chair and Maya, that's a very good point. And if we do need to adjust that, I always find that when we get to election times, it becomes a little hard for us to guess exactly when the blackout dates are going to be and when we're going to get people sworn in and orientated. But certainly at the chair's direction, we'll adjust that date when we get closer if that needs to happen.
I think we can almost signal that that will have to be changed in that once the election happens, directors who are not re-elected cease being elected and would cease being on, I think, the commission, but we'll definitely look into that. Thanks for raising that. With that understanding that amendments can come back, a motion to at least approve this first blush of it. Anyone want to make a motion? Director Tate, seconded by.
I'll second.
I can hear voice. Kevin? Yeah, thanks a lot,
Good
Director
name.
Murdoch. Anyone? Okay, those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I have a crazy screen on this end where I only see a couple of you. So if it sounds a bit disjointed, it's because, yeah, we're not getting the visuals in. We've moved the Student Advisory Committee down further on the agenda. And so that takes us to the operations update. And Kevin.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Three things I'd like to sort of highlight from the report shared with you, including a few updates. First is scheduled service delivered. In the spring, you'll note that we highlighted that 99.4% of scheduled service was delivered. In July so far, we're at about 99.2%. Since our last meeting, certainly attrition is exceeding our recruitment. It's not unlike what you're seeing in the paper, where there's been some challenges with many industries, and talking to colleagues across the country. This has been a challenge as everybody's sort of preparing back for a return to normality, particularly in transit with the fall. We've seen not unexpectedly a number of retirements, so that's posed some challenges to where we're at right now, but we're making a lot of efforts to prepare best for the fall and ensure we have some service, a high level of service reliability. One thing I just want to highlight is just a thank you to the operators. You know, in this environment, we do rely on operators going above and beyond to volunteer for overtime service. So that's a big thing that's allowing us to get still a very reasonable amount of service on the road. We've implemented a very strong recruitment campaign, and we hope to really see the fruits of that over the course of the fall sheet, which should allow us to increase our flexible service on top of what is scheduled. The second thing I wanted to touch on is with regards to pass-ups. We've still remained very low number of pass-ups and pass-up events. Of course, that's probably very reflective of the ridership being still at about 55%. And the last thing I wanted to touch on is on-time performance. We have experienced a slow decline in our on-time performance over the recent month, and that's largely reflective of what we can see an increased level of traffic on the road. I'm sure we've all experienced that. But we've also seen now an increase or possibly catch up on road work, which is impacting service on the road and particularly the scheduled service. Part of what we're very optimistic, there's been a very strong deep dive effort into reviewing our running times and preparing a very reliable level of running times for the fall. So I look forward to seeing what that does for us in the fall. And with that, those are the three items I wanted to touch on from the report, and happy to take any questions.
Commission members. Yes, Director Helms.
Thank you. This is more of a forward-looking question with respect to operations and scheduling. We were discussing this a little bit earlier in the workshop about people may not be returning to work in the same volumes or the same patterns that they previously came to work. And one of the things that I've been made aware of is that there may be some people who work from home Mondays and Fridays and then come into the offices Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So just curious as to how transit staff are thinking about that kind of approach to scheduling, whether there's such thing as a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday schedule if we see high ridership on particular days of the week. So just wanted to get some sense of that kind of on a go forward basis.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that's an excellent question. I think that might be more appropriate to the planning team. The one thing I'll just highlight in response is part of our efforts as we increase our operator requirement is to allow some flexibility as to where we distribute service. But I do agree this is an environment where we're going to want that flexibility in how we adjust, and it might be more appropriate for maybe Levi to address that in the as how planning's adjusting to or expecting to adjust to different ridership demand.
That's
and possibly in the next report, I believe Levi's following me.
I can speak to it really briefly right now. So through the chair, currently we do have a different Monday to Thursday schedule. We have a separate Friday schedule, and we have of course a separate Saturday and Sunday schedule. And we've historically approached this or used this approach to scheduling because we've seen different demand characteristics across different service days. So what your suggestion is a good one, and I think that as we see ridership continue to evolve through the fall, and then as well through the coming years as well, as travel patterns continue to evolve, I think it's something we'll have to continue to monitor in terms of ridership pattern. And we've done a lot of demand-based service level changes through COVID, and I think as part of that, we've been doing a deep dive into performance across service days, across time of day, across routes. And so I think as we see these ridership patterns change and emerge, we can look at those options in greater detail in the future. So it's a great question, and I think we'll continue to monitor and see how those things emerge and bring something forward to the commission if required at a future date.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And just a logistical question. I don't think we print the rider's guides anymore. Is that correct? Did we stop doing that during COVID? Because if we're being flexible with scheduling, the rider's guides being printed would be a challenge, I think.
Through the chair, my understanding is we are printing rider's guides again. I think there was a very brief period of time, I think maybe for the first schedule where we didn't print the rider's guide, but yeah, we are printing them again now. And it's true, I think, with the flexible service, that service that we deliver above and beyond our published schedule. So more demand responsive, so to speak. So we would continue to develop a schedule that we think will meet demand, and then the flexible service is to provide opportunities to cover emerging demand over the course of a sign up, for example, or a service period, and then as well to just respond in the moment as things come up within the system.
Okay, so the rider's guide would be, in a sense, the base level, and then anything else would be additional service on top of that based on demand. Okay, great. Thank you very much for your answers. Thank you, Chair.
Any further questions? Other members of the commission? If not, then a motion to, yes, it does look like there's some hands up. I'm not sure if they're old hands.
Oh, Lisa's Kevin Murdoch, Charlene, your hand is up. Director Orr, at least maybe old data we're getting, or is your hand up? Go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you. In your presentation, you mentioned a strong recruitment campaign, and I'm just curious if you can elaborate on that. And in the recruitment campaign, is there some initiatives to reach a more diverse group in that recruitment?
Yeah, good question. I probably couldn't give you as much detail. I'm happy to provide you more afterwards, but two of the things we're doing very much some targeted campaigns to different industries where we feel there's some opportunity. One of the things we found most successful historically is word of mouth. So we've increased our referral incentives. So those are two items we're doing. And we've got as part of our people and culture team, we have the talent acquisition, and they're working on other strategies with exactly that mindset. So that's something I can pass on, and I'd also be happy to share afterwards maybe any other initiatives that I haven't captured here today.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if it's been done in the past, but I would love an update on recruitment and what Trans is doing to reach a more diverse group for applications. So just through the chair, that would be something that would be of interest to me. A second question.
We'll make sure we get it. Yeah.
Thank you. The second question I have is, I think it was in this report, I couldn't see the scrolling that I read, you talked about, I think this is the report that talked about complaints. And I guess my question is if, and I don't remember what the 2019 numbers for complaints, but I would anticipate if ridership had gone down dramatically in 2020 and 2021, that complaints would also be quite a bit reduced. So I just want your comments on that sort of graph, I guess, if we were to see. Does that correlate to the lack of ridership, that complaints went down or complaints stayed up, or how would you describe it?
Yeah, the report reflects year over year to last year. So we're reflecting a period in which we were in the midst of COVID. So what you're seeing is a transition of where the inquiries were going from anything related to COVID or capacity to now service levels or on-time performance. It's shifting more to what would be a more normal environment. From 2019, they would definitely be down, but we anticipate as the ridership goes up, it's going to catch up. If you compare to last year, though, we're up in those three key categories that are reflective of what I shared, where it's related to service levels or service reliability.
Okay, thank you. And just, I think we commented that we're in the customer service business as well, and hoping we could address the amount of complaints that we receive. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I see Director Murdoch, your hand is up.
Yeah, thank you, through Chair. Just one quick question. In the page 3 of the report under custom transit service, it's quite striking how many trips, the significant increase in service. Can you just give a quick overview of why that the custom transit service changed so dramatically year over year?
Yeah, sorry, I probably couldn't speak to that as intimately. It's just not directly observing those trips. I can speak from what I have heard through the ATAC meetings that ridership, the demand for custom trips always existed. And the only reason we had that significant decline was just literally the absence of services that many of those clients were utilizing. So as we return to normality, it's more reflective of that demand was always there versus conventional ridership, where the demand is largely that post-secondary market that we'll see, I think, a significant change in the fall. That's what was commented to some degree in the last ATAC meeting. Beyond that, I'm sorry, I don't have much more information to share with you on that.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Just the fact that they probably weren't using those, the services weren't available for a time during COVID. And so those numbers are artificially low last year. So thank you.
Director Orr.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just maybe a forward-looking question related to the notion of hiring and whatnot. So certainly this is a bit of a, let's say, a short-term, 1 year, 2 year, based on what's happening, COVID, etc. But maybe if Kevin could comment on how he sees the sensitivity to the increased hours that we've just talked about in another item, going forward. How sensitive is our ability to deliver on those increased hours with the investment in comparison to some of the challenges with respect to bringing new folks on board to actually operate the vehicles, etc.?
That's an excellent question. I think that is a risk. It's very much our objective to bring our numbers to a level that allow us to provide extra service. But I think only the coming months can tell. I think I'd love to be able to forecast in such a way because I'd be doing better in the markets. But this last 2 months has been very telling as attrition rates have gone up, mainly through retirement, of course. And June and August are traditionally high periods for retirement. And what we saw this year was a little bit of a catch up for those who chose to stay last year. We're seeing a little bit of a catch up this year. So the next couple months to me is very telling in that you'll see some more normality as to where Some benefits will expire for those not working. We will see attrition return to something more normal. So I think by the time we speak next time, we'll know very well where that risk lies, because if we're not starting to exceed attrition and growing our numbers, yes, absolutely, that's an excellent question. We'd be in trouble. I'm optimistic by nature. I think we're on the right path. I know people in culture, our team is doing everything they can to attract those new recruits. But it's a tough market right now, and we're competing against other employers that are increasing their incentives at alarming rates, doing everything they can to recognize those that have come back to work. So this next two to 3 months is going to be very informative as to what our next year would look like.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you. If there are no further questions or comments, a motion to receive this report for information, please. Moved by Director Thornton-Joe, second by Director Orr. Those in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And Kevin, you stay on stage and we'll go to number 9, ATAC. And the minutes.
Thank you. If I'm on stage, I was wishing I was providing a more entertaining show.
No, we're enthralled.
What I will say, we've made some great progress with the Accessible Transportation Advisory Committee, and I appreciate the Commission's allowing the opportunity for us to speak to these very engaged individuals on where we take the committee. We've focused each meeting with a very specific subject where, as an organization, we're consulting with them or providing some updates. Part of that was a review of the charter. And so what you see before you were some recommendations that came through that dialogue in updating it. There were kind of 3 key areas. One was to lower the minimum number of participants, just to ensure that we are always focused on attaining the highest quality engaged members. Part of that recruitment process now is also ensuring we have some diversity among the committee, reflecting the different communities of accessibility. So we're very focused on that, and we're equally including language that sort of speaks to ensuring what they bring to the committee. So not only the perspective of different communities, but some of the skill sets. So there was some interest in allowing that the vice chair, who's covering for the chair, be nominated by the committee among existing committee members. The next item was related to meeting frequency. I think part of the challenge has been with the committee historically is attendance. So the committee desired to have a recognition of an opportunity where somebody has missed 2 meetings in a year, more than 2 meetings in a year, that there could be a review of their membership on that committee. And finally, there's also per me was the recognition that to allow for a virtual meeting environment, so we have that opportunity going forward. I think many members initially were uncomfortable, but as we've come comfortable with the environment, there's a recognition that actually this is a very convenient way for different members of the communities to participate. So we want to make sure that that's recognized in the charter to allow for that. And there were a few housekeeping items listed at the bottom. And so in summary, they're, I believe, fairly simple and logical changes. And the ask of the committee is to accept those changes and put them into the charter for ATAC.
Questions on that report and recommendation, and obviously options for consideration? I would think that probably option 4 would be the one, unless there are some objections raised. Anyone on the commission have a comment? If not, open for a motion. Motion would hopefully be to accept all of the proposed changes.
Susan, I'll move option 4.
I'll second that.
Moved by Tate, seconded by Haynes. discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? Anyone opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for that report, Kevin, and your work with that ATAC group. I served on there for a number of years, and I found it a very, very interesting mix for sure. So appreciate your involvement there. And then perhaps so we'll just receive minutes for information. Moved by Director Tate. Seconded by Director Orr. Okay with that? Seconding it? Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks all. Planning update. We'll go to you, Levi.
Thank you again, Chair Bryce and members of the Commission for having me here today. Just give a quick update in terms of some of the planning work that's been undertaken over the last several months since our last Commission update. So as Kevin alluded to, we've got some plan changes for the upcoming fall schedule with the return to post-secondary institutions for in-person classes and also our K-12 schools as well. So we've got some targeted service improvements on some of those core routes serving our post-secondary institutions. Some scheduled and some unscheduled for flexible service improvements as required based off changing demand conditions. We've also got some minor changes to improve service reliability for the fall as well. In terms of some of the planning initiatives we have underway right now, we're continuing to work on 2 local area plans, including the Peninsula Local Area Transit Plan. So the Peninsula Local Area Transit Plan, we've just wrapped up our public engagement process. So it was great to get the feedback from the public on a number of those options related to short-term proposed routing changes, service level improvement prioritization, and options around improving airport service, and then of course options for consideration for the future of rapid bus on the peninsula and how that would tie into the broader network within the peninsula area. You want to just scroll down to the next page. Sure. And then, of course, we're also working on the West Shore Local Area Transit Plan update, which we just kicked off in June. We are going to be supported by Watt Consulting Group on this project process. We all know there's been such a rapid pace of development within the West Shore area over the last 6 to 7 years since our last West Shore Local Area Transit Plan was completed. So really looking to better align the transit network to recent changes in density and development within the region, as well as helping to support the implementation of the West Shore Rapid Bus Line over the next couple of years as well, as part of that plan, and include some engagement with the public around that. Next page. As well, thank you to Chair Bryce for providing a brief overview and update on the Rapid Bus project. So as Chair Bryce alluded to, we've done a joint release between BC Transit, the Victoria Regional Transit Commission, the province, and the CRD on June 30th. And really, in terms of next steps for that project, we'll be looking to form a committee and a working group structure to support the implementation of the West Shore Line. And we're going to include staff from the relevant local government districts within the region and the ministry and the CRD for really moving that project process forward. And as I alluded to, we're hoping to include some engagement as part of the West Shore Local Area Transit Plan update to help engage on some of the details for rapid bus implementation as well. That was everything I had to update on today from a planning perspective.
So we'll open it up for the commission members to ask questions or make comments on any part of this report, the planning update. I see, yeah, Mayor Helps.
Thank you. That's really exciting about Rapid Bus. When do we expect to see it actually running up and down the corridor, that West Shore to downtown line. Because I was like, oh, great, it's been announced. And then when I read next steps include the formation of a committee and working group, I was like, oh no, here we go, more committees and working groups. What's the ETA for getting the West Shore to downtown line on the road?
That's a fantastic question. To my understanding, it's within the next 3 years, and the timeline is still not 100% confirmed, but I believe it's Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's the 2022-23 fiscal period is when we're hoping to launch that service. So still some work to do in terms of confirming details, and of course, infrastructure is a big component of it. So there's work to be undertaken to make sure that the supporting infrastructure is in place for that as well. And to add to that, James is doing the infrastructure update after this, and he'll provide a little more details on the infrastructure associated with Rapid Bus, and that might provide more clarity in terms of the timeline considerations as well.
And Lisa,
Yeah, I might also add, at the same time that we have that working group and implementation group working, we don't expect it's going to take the whole 2 to 3 years to roll out the entire package. We will be making incremental improvements over that time period, and I'm certain there'll be exciting things coming out of that over the next year, leading to the full implementation in 3 years. So, yeah, James may be able to speak to that a bit in the infrastructure report too. So there's things going on simultaneously.
Great, thank you very much.
and I know Director Helps, you've been a proponent for branding and stations and awareness, and I certainly would hope that, as Lisa has just said, that a lot of this can get started well before too much more time passes, because certainly that part of the route is ready to go.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, Director Martin?
Thank you, Chair. Staying on that Rapid Bus, and I'm very excited about that as well. And I think that's going to be a great service for the West Shore. But one of the questions I have for you is, do we ever have a metric around, for example, if we took the Langford transit station or the Colwood Exchange, do we have a metric on trying to figure out how fast we're willing to commit to getting UVic students to UVic from those, for example, from those spots? Because I mean, that's one of our bigger pushbacks, especially out here in the West Shore. It can take 1.5 hours to 2 hours to get from the West Shore to UVic. And so do we have any of those? And do we have a desire to be able to get a student to school by X period from those locations? And in addition to that, will Rapid Bus, when Rapid Bus comes, do we expect to see a vast improvement to UVic from the West Shore? That's my first question.
Levi?
Excellent question. So through the chair, we currently do acknowledge that there's a large number of students that commute from the West Shore to UVic, and we do have services that are about as direct as possible within the context of the current infrastructure. For example, our Route 51 operates directly between the West Shore down the highway and up Mackenzie straight to UVic. So that's a targeted peak service that really seeks to meet that demand and get students there as quickly and efficiently as possible. Beyond that as well, I think we continue to monitor the usage of those services and add more services as required. But with respect to your second question regarding Rapid Bus, I think when you look at Rapid Bus as a comprehensive program, within the implementation strategy, we've identified 3 key lines. The first one, of course, being the West Shore to downtown line, but as well, subsequent lines include uptown to UVic. And so I think between those different services and investments, we're going to see increases in operational time, so faster, more direct service and improved connections, allowing even in off-peak periods, faster service and connections to and from the university from the West Shore. So we have services available now, and I think as we continue to roll out Rapid Bus, it's going to provide significant increased benefits to students living in the West Shore and commuting to UVic.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question is, can you tell me what is the planning process in regards to creating some connectivity between the West Shore communities as we continue to expand? because right now one of the major issues that I have, especially from a West Shore standpoint, when residents are speaking to me, is that they feel that this is a West Shore to downtown system versus a West Shore to West Shore system, for example. So at what point and when do we begin to start making those decisions?
Another fantastic question and perfectly timed. So as part of the West Shore Local Area Transit Plan update process, we're really looking to revision the broader transit network structure within the West Shore. As you allude to, and as we've recognized as well, there's been such a vast amount of development that's changed the nature of how people move around, where they live, where they move around within the West Shore. And we also, the commission approved expansion resources in February of this year to implement some of those initial network restructures and service level improvements to the West Shore as an outcome of this study that we're doing right now. So yeah, we're really looking to change the network to better improve service to some of these key growing areas like Royal Bay, for example, and as well like the Bear Mountain area, a lot of these rapidly developing areas, and to better connect into West Shore, or sorry, to the West Shore Rapid Bus and other key destinations throughout the region as well.
My final question, Chair, through you to Levi. Levi, how can the general public begin to share their visions of what's needed in the West Shore to West Shore stops, and how best can the public communicate that to BC Transit?
So we'll be undertaking public engagement as part of the West Shore Local Area Transit Plan. I believe in the first week of October is our planned timeline. So we'll be distributing that survey quite widely through our social media and advertising campaign, but as well we'll provide that information to each of the local governments to also promote across your channels as well. So the hope is that that's the ideal opportunity for our West Shore residents to really comment on the vision for transit in the West Shore in the coming years.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Director Tate.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, staff, for the report. Just sort of building on what Director Orr has said, or pardon me, Director Martin. With the West Shore planning, I guess I have a couple of questions. This first one, where the report and the committee refers to adjacent local governments. I'm just wondering which local governments that would involve. And also with the West Shore planning, other queries are, I mean, obviously for our residents out Sookway and beyond, the big thing is getting to the West Shore and then connecting to other points. So in addition to the need to go downtown, there's also a need for folks to get to CFB at Esquimalt quickly, as well as to the hospitals, not necessarily patients, but all the staff. So some comments have been that the schedules don't work or align with the staff changeovers. So the 7 to 7, and then the shifts don't line up. So if you could share any pieces about that, and then also what would the planning group look like? Thank you.
Great question. So through the chair, we've got the core group comprised within the West Shore region, as BC Transit's identified it, for the planning area, which is Metchosin, Colwood, Langford, and the Highlands. And then we've also identified View Royal and Souk as well as groups that will be liaising with as we're developing service options, et cetera, because we recognize that there's going to be potential synergies between the local area plans for both of those areas, and potential impacts and considerations. So in terms of the core working group, it's Metchosin, Colwood, Langford, and the Highlands, but as well we'll be reaching out to staff with the District of Souk and View Royal as well, in terms of some of the details around the options, the engagement, all that fun stuff.
Then further, sorry, would the development of the West Shore plan also take into consideration the need to connect folks to those other points, the hospitals and the base?
Yeah, so through the chair, with the implementation of the West Shore Rapid Bus line, we're going to need to look at the service design for the Route 61, and I think that's really the opportunity where we can look at some of those key key goals from the Souk Local Area Transit Plan in terms of improving service to the West Shore for Souk residents, and trying to figure out how best to change that service to meet the broader goals identified within that plan to really meet the needs of your residents and your community. And I think as well, one of the core tenets of both the West Shore Local Area Transit Plan, the Rapid Bus Implementation Strategy, is to continue growing service levels on some of these key corridors so that the impact of transfers, for example, is minimized on those core corridors that are going to serve these key destinations that you speak to, such as the hospital and other key destinations within the region as well. So yeah, through the chair, we'll have to look at that through that process, and I think we're really going to look to deliver on those key goals within the Souk Local Area Transit Plan as part of the process.
No, thank you for that. I think the biggest challenge Souk residents have is with weekend and sort of off-peak hours is the 61 tours Langford before it heads to other destinations. And so that's where folks are like, it's just too long to be on a bus, and then to transfer is just a challenge. So then folks are opting to drive instead, which doesn't help our climate goals because the bus is just too long. It's not a reasonable ride, but great for people wanting to tour.
Director Helps.
Sorry, old hand again. I'm not good at this program.
Director Martin?
I reflect Director Help's comment.
Okay. Good, just didn't want to miss anyone. Are there any other questions or comments on this? If not, a motion to receive the planning update for information. I'm going to pick you if you don't put your hand up. Oh, move. Director Tate, seconded by Director Martin. Those in favor? Any in opposition? Seeing none, motion passes. And we've then moved to the infrastructure update. James Wadsworth.
I was going to give a quick overview because I thought we might be looking to end the meeting, but we're ahead of schedule. So for Handy Dart, that active project, we've been out doing some engagement on the design this July. There should be a report that you should receive fairly soon on how the engagement went. We're looking at doing some site preparation work this fall, and then a bit more work. That project will actually really start in 2022. At the University of Victoria, UVic, we've issued some design work so we can move forward with the transit exchange there. We'll be doing that this fall. That will have us a project that's completed in September 2022. And for the Island Highway, we're just finalizing a business. And we're actually seeing if we can make a lot of this project Investment Canada eligible, so we can get a better deal for the Transit Commission that way. So we're moving forward with that. In the world of project planning, we're just finalizing the operations and maintenance facility plan, but we've already have a whole bunch of short-term projects for the Victoria and Langford Transit Centers, about $13 million of projects that we're programming into our capital plan that will help us support further expansion from our existing facilities, so we don't have to wait for the third facility to come online before we can do bus expansion. And I've been working with the local governments on the rapid bus side with the transit infrastructure. We're in the process of scoping out a study to look at the rapid bus stations on Douglas Street with the City of Victoria. We're also just in the process of executing a project study agreement with Saanich on the Mackenzie corridor. So we'll have some plans there for rapid bus infrastructure that will be integrated with some cycling improvements that Saanich would like to make. So we hope to have a consultant ready to go for this this fall. In terms of Uptown, the ministry is advancing some short-term transit priority study work on Ravine Road, and we're looking at how we can implement some rapid bus stations on Highway 1 there. So that's now at the detail design phase. And we're also moving forward with transit-oriented development plans for the properties at Uptown. We've hired a consultant to help us assess the opportunities there for development. So we're looking forward to finishing that off and having some information to talk to Saanich about in terms of what we can do at that location there. The ministry is continuing to work on the park and ride out by Connie Road in Glens Lake as part of the realignment of the road out there, and they've kicked off some more bus lane studies on Highway 1. And there's some stuff coming up with Highway 17s in terms of transit priority. Probably we'll have some announcements this fall. And that's that. Any questions?
Lots on the go. Any questions or elaboration on any of these from any member of the commission? No, I'll take a
Susan.
motion. Yes, I'm sorry, did I miss something?
It's Kevin.
Yeah.
It's Kevin Murdoch here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just if I thank you through you, Chair. Just I know one of the obviously the big investments coming over the next number of years is the move to electrification, and it's just there's not much on this report on that specific piece, and I know it impacts space requirements and all kinds of other things. Is there any additional update available at this time, just to talk a little bit about expected needs for any of that infrastructure going forward?
I think that what we'll do this fall is we'll have a detailed report as part of the next commission package, and we can go through the improvements at each of the sites and what we could potentially do with the third facility. There's just a pretty we need to do a pretty comprehensive report, I think, to explain that to everybody. But we're trying to plan here for the integration of battery electric bus, and also making sure that, in the future we have room for between 500 and 600 buses for the Victoria region to fully support the transit future plan over the next 25 to 30 years.
Yeah, thank you, James. And I appreciate that. And I think that report would be appreciated. For anybody who is watching this, because it's not mentioned in the report, I thought it was just worth noting that there's an enormous amount of infrastructure work going on that side of the equation, even though it's not on this particular report in detail. So I appreciate that coming forward in future. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for raising that, Director Murdoch. You're right. Public is very interested in that aspect of the work. Thanks a lot, Mark. Is your hand up on purpose there, Rob?
Yeah, it is this time. Just because Kevin mentioned it, and it's a personal question as well, and just from a curiosity standpoint, with the electrification of our fleet, are we creating any synergies with the Harbor Authority, with the infrastructure that they're putting in place for the ships? That they're dropping that large BC Hydro charging thing in there. Is there any? Are we talking to them at all? Is there any way that we're going to be able to capitalize on that?
I think we're speaking with BC Hydro around what improvements that have to be made to the grid to connect all of these facilities for battery electric bus charging in Langford, at the Victoria Transit Center on Gorge, as well as future facilities in Saanich and potentially beyond. So no, not direct conversations, but we are having conversations with the utilities on the power.
Okay.
I'm sorry. What I'll say is the initial strategy is to do on-site charging, but it will be interesting to see what the opportunities are in the future if we're having to do some of the on-street charging. So potentially, as we move forward, there might be opportunities down to work with the Harbor Authority there.
Great, thank you.
Further questions?
Seeing no hands up, we'll take a motion to receive that report for information. Moved by Murdoch, seconded by Lisa Helps. Those in favor? Opposed? Anyone opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Robin, are you back with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Good. We'll move then to the Student Advisory Committee report, and Lisa Trotter is going to introduce that, and we'll be obviously looking forward to your comments on that report, Robin.
Yeah, so I brought a report to the last commission meeting in June to strike a student advisory committee, and there was a subsequent motion made that we bring it back to the students, the terms of reference, which the terms of reference has gone to the student body. And it was decided with the students that when we get the first meeting or first couple meetings up and running, that they would work on the terms of reference, and we'd endorse that together. But the one thing that also needed to come back when that motion was approved was the membership. So we did remove the rotation of the non-voting student. I had put it in there that we should maybe consider Royal Roads. That was removed. And we did add in at the request of the students, the Graduate Student Society as a member. So if you could scroll down to the table, please, Christine. There we have it. We've got I guess the template that shows all the membership for the advisory group. And this is the recommendation that the commission approve the non-voting student rotation oh, I'm sorry, that
was on the original.
That was on the original.
Yeah, I got confused as well.
So really, all we're doing today is approving the student advisory committee comprised of the post-secondary students to that chart that you see in front of you.
Right, and so there is absolutely no confusion, because I certainly
yes, I think that should have been removed.
Yeah. This was all part of an original report, but subsequently the report that is there for consideration on today's agenda.
Chair, if you scroll
Yes.
back up, this is just the June 8th
This is the
report
appendix.
appended.
That's
If you
right.
scroll up a bit, you'll go back to the correct one. So
Right.
There we go. That's
Good
why
point.
I'm confused.
Yeah, even further back.
yeah, this whole thing is just the
The appendix.
It's the appendix.
It's the
yeah.
report from the last meeting that
This
was
was the June,
attached
yeah.
as an appendix, yeah.
Back further. That was the June meeting. That's right. Now we're coming.
There we
back to
go.
current.
This is the one.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the short staff report that has the improvements made with all the motions that were that came out of the June meeting, and the recommendation that the commission approve the student advisory committee comprised of post-secondary representation to advise the commission, and you can see it there in front of you. So the only addition to this was the member appointed by the GSS board and having the Graduate Student Society included. And there was several meetings with Robin, who's the non-voting student rep here on the commission, and her speaking with other student reps. It was a little hard for us to get together as a group over the summertime, but the students, and she can certainly speak on their behalf, we're happy to put this back to the commission, get it approved so that they can get some action in starting this advisory committee meeting. So maybe at the chair's request, we could see if Robin would like to speak.
Yes, Robin, please, we'd be interested in your comments on this.
Yeah, totally. I think, as Lisa said, it was a bit difficult to get everyone together over the summer, but we did have everyone, other than Royal Roads, we weren't able to get in touch with them, but the CCSS and GSS were happy with this arrangement, with what we were able to make the amendments from the last meeting. And we'd be super excited to have this passed today and then be able to meet and kind of get started with that Student Advisory Council.
Thank you. And thank you for work on that, Robin. Are there any questions of Robin
or Lisa on this report from members of the commission? Director Murdoch.
Thank you. I guess, and I'm very happy to see this here. I think the structure that's been laid out is excellent. I've got no issues with it at all. I noticed, just curiosity, do we have a time frame in terms of reaching out to the school districts for their potential interest? I know it's one of the to-dos in the future, but has there yet, I know that this has been a bit more formalized. Is there a time frame that we've attached to that?
Through the chair, I would love to reach out to those groups when they start to get into their fall session again and see what availability there might be for them to participate in this group. And with the post-secondary students, if they agree that that they should come on as either stakeholders or whether we just have them as needed, we'd certainly, I think, speaking on behalf of the students, love to have their input. If Robin wants to speak to that as well, but I was going to start reaching out to them in September to see what ability they do have to be able to give us some of their time.
That sounds great. Thank you very much for that.
Robin, are there any comments from the post-secondary students regarding whether or not there would be interest in expanding